Okay, so but let's get into Micah, you guys. All right, so the whole deal with Micah is that it's corruption, and it's corruption. I mean, we say it's sin. Of course it is. It's disobedience to God. But I mean, how can we say it in the terms of a non-believer? And it's corruption, and it's corruption that starts at the top. It's corruption that starts at the top. There's political corruption, and that just trickles down, and there's because of that, there's social, societal, cultural, you name it. And it's going against God's standard, okay? And so the whole idea of God's renewal plan, the whole idea of God's restoration plan is to provide an ideal government with an ideal leader, okay? I know that many of us have heard in evangelical circles that that we shouldn't talk about government, that Christianity or the Bible has nothing to do with government. In the Old Testament, it has everything to do with government. Maybe we don't like the word politics because for whatever reason, but it has to do with government, okay? So let's get into chapter 4. Let's get into chapter 4, you guys. All right? And who wants to read chapter 4, 1 through 5 for me? I'm going to have Alex read it for me. Chapter 4, 1 through 5. And they say that computers are so much faster. The internet. Oh, see? We can't always depend on electronic Bibles. Dun, dun, dun. Micah, chapter 4, 1 through 5. Allergies. Yep. 1 through 5.
In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and peoples will stream to it. Many nations will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between many peoples. They will settle disputes for strong nations far and wide. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree. No one will make them afraid, for the Lord Almighty has spoken. All the nations may walk in the name of their gods, but we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever."
All right, so so in this whole kind of future vision, he says that God's mountain, Zion, will be the highest of all mountains, and peoples will stream to it. Why will people stream to it, according to what Alex just shared? Is it to worship God? Is it to sing songs to him? Is it to offer sacrifices? Why is it that they're going up to God's mountain?
Well, from what I saw and what I just read,
Yeah.
it looks like for guidance.
Very good. Exactly. That's exactly right. And I'm just going to add a little adjective in front of that guidance. It's for governmental, political guidance. Governmental, political guidance. They're going up there to seek wisdom and how to run their country. That's why these nations are going up to the mountain. They're not worshiping God, or they're not worshiping God the way that we understand worship. They're going up to the mountain to seek wisdom and wisdom applied, if you will. The idea is that they are trying to figure out how to best live out their lives, how to best instill a righteous government, And that's what I want to talk about with at this present moment. It's the term righteousness. Righteousness. Now, I've harped on this a lot, but what are your understandings of righteousness? This guy is a righteous guy. This guy is a righteous man of God. What are some pictures? What are some ideas that come into your mind? This guy's a righteous man. Integrity, very good. He's a man of integrity. What else? Fairness, excellent. What else? He's a righteous guy. Wisdom, okay. Utilizing wisdom. Let me ask this. These are all on the right track. That's exactly where I'm going at. So it shows that you're my students. Excellent. So, what's the popular Christian understanding of righteousness? Being a righteous person. What is the popular Christian idea? And let me just say, the popular ideas most times are not the right idea. But what's the popular understanding of a righteous person? Perfect. Excellent. He's perfect. He's holy. And probably when you mean holy, did you say it, Sir Ace? Set apart, right? I think that's true in essence to righteousness up there, but holy in the popular sense is abstinence. I abstained from secular music. I abstained from watching movies. I abstained from all these different things. And so that's kind of the popular understanding of righteous. Absolutely. He's perfect. What else is a popular understanding of righteousness? He's in our church. He's righteous. He's a righteous man of God, or she's a righteous woman of God. What do you think? Okay, very good. And so we apply the word faithful, consistency, serving, but what that basically means is busy in the popular sense. He's just busy. You know what I'm saying? He goes on Wednesday night Bible study, then he serves for youth, then he does this for Sunday worship and this, that. Don't get me wrong. Those are all good things and people need to fill them. But most times than not, when one person does them constantly, it's just busy work. There's no time for you to vegetate. And when I mean vegetate, I want you to think of there's no time for God to grow in you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's exactly right. So we have this. So this righteous guy is a perfect. And what do we mean perfect in the popular? Is squeaky clean? Squeaky clean. He abstains from everything. He doesn't. His ears don't get polluted by the secular music of the day. And he's busy. He's busy, right? Excellent. Notice also how all of these affirm self-identity. How it affirms self-identity, it affirms self-worth. Okay? If that is the case and someone pursues it, in essence, what this is really a selfishness. Selfishness. I'm establishing my own identity among the what is the word? I'm establishing my own identity among the sheep, if you will. Okay? Righteousness here, integrity, very good. Fairness, excellent. Wisdom, excellent. The whole idea of righteousness is ethical. Righteousness is relational. Righteousness is how you treat a person. That's what true righteousness is, okay? That is what true righteousness is. And so God is establishing righteousness to these peoples that are going up to his mountain. And he's telling them, this is how you should treat people. This is how you should treat people well. Or this is how you should treat people the way that I've designed you to treat people. Okay? Excellent. Questions about that? All right. Then let's continue on. Ace, can I have you read 6 through 13 for me?
In that day declares the Lord, I will gather the lame, I will assemble the exiles, and those I have brought to grief. I will make the lame my remnant, those driven away a strong nation. The Lord will rule over them in Mount Zion from that day and forever. As for you, watchtower of the flock, stronghold of the daughter Zion, the former dominion will be restored to you. Kingship will come to daughter Jerusalem. Why do you now cry aloud? Have you no king? Has your ruler punished? That pain seizes you like that of a woman in labor, with
Writhe.
in agony, daughter Zion, little like a woman in labor. For now you must leave the city, the camp into the open field. You will go to Babylon. There you will be rescued, and the Lord will redeem you out of the hand of your enemies. But now many nations are gathered against you. They say, let her be defiled. Let our eyes gloat over Zion. But they do not know the thoughts of the Lord. They do not understand his plan. And that he has gathered them like sheaves to the threshing floor. Rise and thresh, daughter Zion, for I will give you horns of iron. I will give you hooves of bronze, and you will break to pieces many nations. You will devote their ill-gotten gains to the Lord, their wealth to the Lord of all the earth.
All right, so this is basically what we have here is a mixture of God's plan. It's overall, it is God's plan over Israel, okay, or God's plan over Judah and Jerusalem. And what you have is it's a mixture of punishment, but then the punishment is not the final piece of the story. And so in the beginning, you'll say, hey, he says, one, you won't have a king anymore. You won't have a Davidic king anymore, okay? But that's okay. That's okay. I have a plan for that, right? And the whole idea is that I am going to take you out of Babylon. I am going to take you out of your homeland, and I'm going to put you into Babylon. And the whole idea of this punishment is forced deportation. Forced deportation, okay? The whole idea of this punishment is forced deportation, all right? Why is that such a big deal? First and foremost, I don't think anyone here has any idea of what forced deportation is. Granted, maybe God called you from living familiar places, but still you had a choice if God called you to do that. Okay? What I'm saying is that there's an enemy who's more powerful than you, and he's taking you out of your homeland into a foreign nation that you don't even want to go to. So imagine, if you will, the way that the people of Israel are experiencing this is basically if ISIS comes in, conquers America, and he takes you guys, or ISIS takes you guys to wherever they live over in Libya or Syria, and they're forced to live there. Do you want to live there? No. You don't gather all your emotion and say, "Oh boy, I can't wait to go to Syria. I can't wait to go Libya. Let's do this, YOLO kind of thing. No, absolutely not. You're forced to go there. You're forced to go there. But what is the purpose of that? What is the point of forced deportation as a form of disciplinary punishment? Anyone have an idea? Anyone want to take a shot at it? Why is that not effective, but why is that a drastic? From the perspective of God, absolutely. From the perspective of God. Thank you for adding that context. Why would forced deportation be the thing that will stick into the minds of the Israelites? It's like, oh, okay, we got to change. Why? What do you guys think?
You actually decided to grace us with your presence.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Why is forced, in the perspective of God, why is forced deportation an effective form of punishment for the people of Israel?
Because then you scatter them, and then
Okay.
they won't be able to They won't be able to.
So God wants to do that? He says, oh, I just want to give up on my people, and I'm just going to eradicate them by submerging them into a false. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I could be wrong, but the land that they're in was their promise.
Okay.
Taken away from what was promised.
Oh, that's good. So if you were promised this land, and it was taken away from you from the guy who gave you the promise, I mean, how do you feel as an Israelite when someone breaks their promise? You're messed up? I don't know. It's just like, let's talk about that, because that's the idea of the people of Israel in their hearts, in their minds right now. I thought God promised us this land. I thought we weren't ever to get out of this land. What's up with that, kind of idea? What's going on? What's going on? Why did God allow this thing to happen to them? Forced deportation. Very good. Very good. It removes their comfort. It removes their complacency. Whenever you're comfortable and you're complacent, you will always trust a snapshot of God rather than the true God. Okay? Whenever you're comfortable, whenever you're complacent, this is just human beings in general. Whenever we're comfortable, whenever we're complacent, whenever we have security on things other than God, we prefer and trust a snapshot of God rather than the true God. And what do I mean by a snapshot of God? An image of God that we have molded to make our God, right? He loves me. He'll never punish me. He will always give me good things. I will never be sick. I will always have money. I will have a beautiful spouse. I will have the house. I will have all things because God loves me. That's a snapshot of God. Because that God doesn't allow you to get sick. That God doesn't allow you to experience poverty. That God doesn't allow you to experience those things. But maybe, just maybe, those things will help you realize who the true God is. Okay? So the reason why forced deportation for the people of Israel was the plan of God is to let them know that they trusted in things that weren't Yahweh. They trusted in the temple. They trusted in the priesthood. They trusted their king. They trusted in the promise rather than the promise keeper. Okay? And so that's the whole idea. When you're in a place where all your security is gone, the only security you have is God. The only security you have is God. And then you realize, I must serve him alone. Okay? So as Christians, we can apply this. Maybe not as American Christians, we won't ever experience physical deportation, but God will allow securities to be taken away from us. He might let us get fired from our job. He might let us be removed from a position at church, something that we really like. We enjoyed singing in the worship team. We loved singing in the worship team. Maybe God's going to remove that because people placed their security upon that. They think that if they sing to God on worship time, that God is all right with them. When in reality, if they have a sin in their heart, it's just like, no, there's something wrong, right? What other examples? He might make you experience cancer. He might make you experience a loss of a loved one. God will never do that. God will never do that, right? Yes, Brandon.
King Joseph is a really good example.
King who?
Joseph of the OT.
Okay. You mean one of the brother Joseph?
Him getting ransacked in Egypt.
Very good.
He would have focused more on promises and the promise keeper.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So he understood, and then in the midst of the suffering, it provided him a good perspective. It says, because God allowed me to experience this to save not just you, but to save the Egyptians, right? Yeah, that's exactly right. The Christians who are forcibly being deported out of their country because of ISIS right now. There's the Kurds, but there's these small pockets of Christians that are forced out of their country, And I remember watching an interview of this tiny little girl who's explaining the experience of what they're going through. And what she said what amazed me. It's literally Holy Spirit inspired. Where she said the woman who's interviewing her, she asked, like, how do you feel towards ISIS? And she says, she was saying something in the lines of, Jesus allowed us to experience this to help us understand we can't trust anyone except for Jesus alone. Amen. And that we also have to forgive ISIS. We also have to show love upon ISIS. And this is why we are going out. Will God bring us back? I hope God brings us back. But if he doesn't, I trust Jesus. I wish I had that kind of faith. And this girl is I think was 7 or 8 years old. I wish I had that kind of, that fortitude in trusting in God. But what compelled her to say those things? It was this whole idea that she had to leave her home. That's how she understood it, And so that's the experience of the people of Israel. Forced deportation was necessary to help them understand that they cannot trust on anything except for Yahweh. Okay? All right, let's go into chapter 5. Then we're done with Micah, and then we'll get into Habakkuk and Zephaniah. All right, who wants to read 5? Where do we want to go? Let's do 5 1 through 6. 5 1 through 6. Brandon, can you read that for me, please?
Marshall.
Yes.
Now, city of troops, for a siege is laid against us. We will strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with a rod. But you, Bethlehem,
Ephrathah.
Though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come from you one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are of old, from ancient times. Therefore Israel will be abandoned until the time when she who is in a laborer bears a son, and the rest of his brothers return to join the Israelites. He will stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord is God, and they will live securely, for then his greatness will reach to the ends of the earth. You will be our peace when the Syrians invade our land and march through our fortresses. We will raise against them 7 shepherds, even 8 commanders.
6.
Who will rule the land of Assyria with the sword. the land of Nimrod with drawn sword. He will deliver us from the Syrians when they invade our land and march across our land.
Okay, excellent. So, so this is a very famous passage. Why is it a famous passage? It is one of the big ones. It's one of the big ones that Christians use to prophesy of the coming of Jesus. But I want us to understand, even though this affirms the coming of Christ, contextually, what kind of Messiah is going to be brought forth? Okay, so it says, marshal your troops now, city of troops, for a siege is laid against us. They will strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with a rod. This is historical. This is when Nebuchadnezzar surrounds Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar surrounds Jerusalem and kills the last king of Jerusalem. Okay, so this is actually a historical event. Okay, but what is Micah saying? Brace yourselves. This is going to happen. Accept the consequence. It's going to happen. However, chill. Don't worry about it. Because what's happening next in verse 2? But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, if I was a good Hebrew student, which I'm not, I would know what Ephrathah means. I have no idea what it means, but it's about the city. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. Okay. Now, I know it's very easy for us to think, oh, this is definitely talking about Jesus. But please, please, please remember, yes, it is, but preliminarily speaking, it's not, right? In the immediate context, I don't think Micah had a glimpse of Jesus, who is going to be the ruler 2,000 years down the road, all right? This is still a 7th century prophet. He's still speaking to the people during this time. How would this passage encourage them by letting them know, oh, don't worry about your suffering right now. 2,000 years down the road, a Messiah is going to come back. What? Really? I want something now, Micah. Give me something now. Tell me, and so forth. So what is this all about? What is this all about? What is this? This is a Messiah prophecy. This is a Messiah prophecy. So question number 1, where is the Messiah coming from? Where is he coming from? Where is our Messiah coming from? Very good. Messiah is coming from Bethlehem. The Messiah is coming from Bethlehem. That's what we see here, okay? Though you are small, Bethlehem is small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will rule over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. Okay, so what is he talking about here? What is he talking about here? Who is he referring to? That's the question I should have asked. Thank you, Lord. Who is he referring to based on the idea that Bethlehem, he comes from Bethlehem, he's small, a small city, and old from ancient times?
Oh,
Don't say Jesus.
I get it.
Who is he talking about?
Is it David?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Bingo. He's talking about David. He's talking about David, okay? Why is this such a big deal in the context? Remember, marshal your troops now, city of troops, for a siege is laid against us. Nebuchadnezzar is laying a siege against Israel. They will strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with a rod. They will strike Israel's ruler. Who is Israel's ruler at this time? His name was Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim. And he is the last Davidic king. He is the last Davidic king. Why is that a big deal? Because somewhere in 1st and 2nd Samuel, the prophet Nathan gives a prophecy over David's line. What is the prophecy over David's line? What is the line of David? What were they promised? Someone will come out of that line, true, but an aspect to that, what was consequential to that is this. There will always be a Davidic ruler on the throne of Jerusalem. There will always be a Davidic ruler on the throne of Jerusalem. However, in chapter 5, verse 1, we are going to eliminate the Davidic line. Nebuchadnezzar is going to eliminate the Davidic line. So you squelch the Davidic line, but God's promise over David is that I will have you continue to rule over Jerusalem. Your line will rule over Jerusalem. Do you guys see the discontinued shift here? Do you guys see the problem?
Yeah.
What's the problem, Burnett?
There's
There's a contradiction, exactly. If God promised thousands of years ago to David that his line will forever rule on Jerusalem, but then in verse 1 of chapter 5, he talks about the last king of David to be destroyed, there's a contradiction. It either makes God a liar or Nebuchadnezzar more powerful than God, right? So how is God going to deal with it? Boom, verse 2. Even though the Davidic king in Israel is gone, I will prepare another Davidic king. He'll come straight from his hometown. Yeah, he's small, but David was small too. Did you know the first time David is ever introduced in the Bible is this: David is small. The very first time that David is ever introduced in the Bible is this: David is small. Okay? So he's going to be just like David. So what does it mean, old from ancient times? He's going to be like David. That's what he's trying to say. Your king, your future king, is going to be like David. Okay? And just like David, what is he going to do? He's going to be the shepherd of God's people. He's going to take a sword. He's going to take a sword and he's going to decimate all the villains and enemies of Israel. And then he's going to establish his kingdom. That's exactly what is being read in chapter 5, 1 through 6. That we're going to have a Davidic king come back and he's going to decimate all the enemies of Israel. And he's going to establish Israel's kingdom. That's the context of 5, 1 through 6. Question: is that what Jesus did?
Not the dissipate part.
No, exactly. So we need to remember, Jesus does affirm all the prophecies that were mentioned to him. Okay? However, Jesus also in his life shook things up. Remember? So this is what the people of Israel expected, and he was that fullness of expectation. However, he says, okay, you expected this, but check it out. I'm actually going to do this. And also keep in mind, is he going to fulfill this? Yeah, he's going to fulfill this. He's going to fulfill this when Jesus Christ comes back. The second coming, where the enemies of his people are going to consume the church and the people of Israel. They're going to be consumed. They're going to, and so forth. Jesus is going to come back to instill justice. Okay? Questions? Are we kosher? We're copacetic, huh? Okay, beautiful. All right, why don't we just then take a break, and I give you 10 minutes, just 10, so that we'll get into Habakkuk, okay? Yes.
One more time, can you go over the David thing and how God didn't contradict himself?
Sure. So the whole idea is this, that first and foremost, all the things that were mentioned to describe Bethlehem is to describe the future king of Israel. And that all those things refer to a true Davidic king. He's going to be a true Davidic king. And what makes him a true Davidic king? What was David described as, Ebony?
Small.
He's small. But what else? Like when we hear preachers talk about David, what do we always hear about David when preachers talk about him? He is what? What do you know about David?
He is, did I say he's handsome?
He was handsome. Goliath calls him handsome. What else? It's weird. It's just like, he's a shepherd. Very good. What about his relationship to God?
Oh, he, man after God's own heart.
Right, exactly. So this true Davidic king is going to be, just like David, a man after God's own heart. And what is it about God's heart that he's gonna come after? Establishing justice for Israel. Okay? So what is this whole idea? In chapter 5, verse 1, he talks about the end of the Israel ruler. Okay? That Israel ruler is the last Davidic king historically. He's the last Davidic king. So a lot of people during this time, and even a lot of atheists right now, saying that means God's a liar, because you're basically saying that what he established with David, with the prophecy that there's going to be a Davidic ruler ruling Jerusalem all the time, but the last king is dead. So how can you say that? For Micah, he's saying that's only just for a moment. It's only for a moment, because I will prepare his seat once again, and I will bring back another Davidic king. So that's the whole idea.
Also, how am I doing in this class? I know
I think you got 2 out of the 3.
I missed 2 assignments?
No. I have 2 of the 3 so far.
So the one from...
So I got your first one. I think I got your second one. I got your midterm.
I'm missing the assignment from last week.
Then you know what? Yes. So I'm missing the third one.
Can I still turn it in? Or...
It'll be late, but yeah, you can turn it
in. So I'm good, right?
In regards to assignments, you're good.
Except for my attendance.
Yes, except for your attendance and stuff. How are you doing on your reading?
Not good.
Well, I mean, you can remember there's no, I'm accepting it at week 9 or 10. So just, whenever you have time, just read it, because it is 10% of your grade. So if you don't do it, then, you know what I'm saying. So do your reading. And then there's the paper next week. So, okay.
What time do we come back by?
6 minutes, 9:10. Oh, thank God, I am recording right now. So, the historical context of Habakkuk. Did you know he is a contemporary of the prophet Jeremiah?
He's a contemporary?
Yes.
What do you mean?
So he lived along the same time as Jeremiah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So just like Micah with Isaiah,
Yeah.
Habakkuk is kind of like small Jeremiah, okay? Or tiny, not tiny. Tiny, there's a lot of things that could allude to tininess. That's not good. But he's a second Jeremiah, if you will, okay? He's a second Jeremiah, all right?
Is it accurate to just throw out there that the reason they're minor is because of the size of the book?
Exactly. That's the only reason. That's exactly. That's why I don't like that word minor. We call them the 12. We're going to call them the 12. Just like Ocean's 11, we're calling them the 12. Okay? So anyways, it's just the 12 sounds legit, right? Instead of minor prophets, it's like the 12, right? I like the 12 too. So that being said, he's a contemporary of Jeremiah. That means that he lived during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II. He ruled between 605 to 562 BC, okay? So during this time, our buddy Habakkuk, like Jeremiah, experienced the sacking of Jerusalem by him in 597. And he probably experienced, not during the time of his writing, but Habakkuk also probably experienced the destruction of the temple in 586 BC.
Wait, he experienced the first one, what?
The sacking of Jerusalem? Yeah. What it is, it's basically, it's a siege. It's a siege to show, yeah, I rule over you. And the sacking led to the first deportation.
And he experienced the destroyed temple?
Yep. He probably did.
Because you know how you don't put the full sentence. That's why I'm asking.
Gotcha. All right, but the time of his writing, so the book that we have, historically, it's in his ministry of 605 to 604 BC. Wait a minute, did you just call me right now then, Carlos? Did you call me right now?
No, I didn't.
All right.
I did that.
331 number? All right. Sorry, guys. Okay, so that means his book was written between 605 and 604 BC during the reign of Jehoiakim of the southern kingdom.
I can't wait to do my timeline.
Cool. That would be a good picture where all these prophets are coming from.
I should probably do it already, huh? Jehovah.
I would strongly encourage it, but that's just me.
That is just me.
Okay, now that's pretty much it about Habakkuk. We really don't know a whole lot else about him because there's nothing really outside of his work or inside of his work that that helps us understand who Habakkuk is. There's been a lot of speculation and a lot of theories, and one theory that I thought was rather interesting was that based on the internal textual evidence of his book and his knowledge of the temple system, he was possibly a cult prophet. And what is a cult prophet? Don't think of the word cult the way that we understand cult today. Cult simply means like religion or religious system in the academic circles. But what a cult prophet is, he was employed by the temple to do prophet things. That was the best succinct definition I could find. So I guess the whole idea is that if the temple ever needed a prophet to utter a divine revelation that affirms the teachings of the law, they would hire a prophet to do that. And so there's some scholars who speculate based on what the text talks about and what the text says that he was a cult prophet. Okay? It's kind of like a traveling speaker, if you will, or a traveling evangelist, or even a coach that enhances another person's message. Okay? Cool? All right. May I continue on?
Yes. I have a question though.
Sure.
And I know why we say this about minor prophets too, but like how come
that whole first thing that makes sense. How come they don't have like the mouth touching of the lips kind of?
That's a great question. I don't know. I really don't. I think that's a tradition of the major prophets, but I don't know why we don't see them with the 12. So, all right. May I continue on? Let's talk about the literary structure of the book. Very small book, I believe, based on our edition of it. There's 3 chapters. It's a very tiny book, but there's 3 literary stages of the book. All right. The first stage is judgment speech against Judah. Judgment speech against Judah. The second stage is a debate over God's plan of punishment. And then the final stage is a victory hymn of God instilling absolute justice.
You know what I just realized?
What's up?
This is actually very difficult. It would have been very difficult to write down, like as a prophet, to write down all of these phases that you're personally going through and to write it in a third person, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And what's unique, has anyone had a chance to read the book?
Yeah.
It's a very unique book. It's a very unique book compared to all the other books that we see in the Bible, particularly. Why? It's basically the way that it's written is it's Habakkuk having a conversation with God. So it's a very unique book. Very unique book. And in the midst of it, there's this particular subject in debate that I don't think we'll ever have the for sure answer of yet until Christ comes back. Okay? But we'll talk about it.
I just couldn't see, I just couldn't have the patience, you know,
Right.
to write down, to actually be keeping note of a lot of stuff that's taking place, how you feel, how you say it to God, how God responds.
Yep.
And then, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
a lot of times, I mean, unless you're just taking notes during the process, but I think this happened over a course of time.
Sure,
you know?
it does.
And
Right.
when I read it, we were talking about that, like how long has he been, you know, crying out to God and asking him.
Yeah.
But it's like you would have to either be taking notes or just be a good writer in a sense to capture that emotion.
Yeah.
After you've already gone through it and found the answer.
Well said.
Why not just jump to the answer and say, this is what the Lord says?
Right, right. But there's there's meaning to the process. Exactly. Right, right. It's well said. Yeah, and to also make it succinct, because he could have had like probably the same amount of parchment that Jeremiah had, making 33 chapters, but he just made it so brief. And it takes a lot of self-control and skill to do something like that. So it's an interesting piece of work.
Do you feel like that's necessary, or is it possible that he probably just had, like he just sat down and told his story, like people would do today, like a
Right.
documentary or whatever, like you would sit down and tell your story and someone else would format it.
Sure.
In a way that's...
Yeah, and that's a lot of scholars believe the last stage was a lot of reformatting by Habakkuk students and stuff. So, all right, let's talk about then the final slide is the theological concerns. Okay, the major issue is God's concern for social justice. That is the big message of Habakkuk. And let me add to that too, that it doesn't look like for Habakkuk, it doesn't look like God cares about social justice, even though he knows that God does, you know? And so that's where the debate and that's where the conversation comes from, okay? And then there's a solution that God provides, and that solution is Yahweh's Day.
Yay!
Yay, Yahweh's Day, right? And Yahweh's Day is understood, Yahweh's Day is understood, hiccups. Yahweh's Day is understood in 2 ways, Okay? One, it's to destroy all of Israel's enemies. Two, it is to punish Israel for their wickedness. Okay? And so what we have here is this particular Yahweh's Day is Yahweh punishing Israel for their wickedness. Okay? So that's the particular Yahweh's Day that is being mentioned in Habakkuk. And how does he punish Judah? How does he punish Jerusalem historically? By who?
Babylon.
By Babylon. Now, is Babylon more righteous than Israel or Judah? Yeah, they're pagans. They're non-believers. Excuse me. They're pagans. They're non-believers. They're idolaters. Okay? So there's this tension here in Habakkuk. And this is the tension. The perseverance of injustice in tension with the sovereignty of a just God. Okay? So, as God, we believe that God has a particular character, don't we? We don't believe like the Jedi believe. We don't believe that it's just this spirit or force, right?
No.
We don't, exactly. And so the whole idea here is that God has a particular character. And what kind of character do we know of God? What is God's character to you guys? Yes, in the context of this class, to demand justice. Why? Because God is a just God. He is a moral God. He has a moral standard. What else do you know about God? What's that? He's a beast, right? Exactly.
He's in the business of redeeming.
He's a redeemer. He is savior. He is benevolent. He's Lord. He is holy. He has a particular character. However, why is there still things that are opposite of God in this world? Why is there still injustice? Why is there still pain? Why is there still suffering? Okay? So if God is all powerful, all this, all just, all loving, why are we still experiencing the opposite? Okay? So it's a deep-rooted debate that people have constantly used to not believe in God. It's like, why is there evil in the world?
Right.
Why is there evil in the world? That, in essence, is the debate that Habakkuk has with God. Why is there still evil? If you're not evil, God, and you can do anything about it, why is there still evil in the world? Okay? That's the debate that Habakkuk has with God. Okay? Now, it's not foreign to Habakkuk. What other Bible character deals with this, Alexander?
I was just going to bring that up. Doesn't Jeremiah?
Jeremiah brings it up. Very good. So you see the contemporary aspect of Habakkuk and Jeremiah?
I was just gonna mention that.
Yeah, Jeremiah definitely brings it up. There's another famous character that brings this up, this issue. Does anyone have a guess? Not Isaiah. He's not a prophet.
He's not.
He's not a prophet.
Is it Job?
It's Job.
Oh.
It's Job. So the whole idea is, the popular idea is if you do righteous things, meaning if you obey God, God's going to take care of you. He's going to protect you, right? That was the whole idea in Israel society. That was the whole idea in Judaism. But then you're a righteous man, and a thief comes in and dismantles your house and kills you. Does that make sense?
No.
Of course
You are
not.
righteous.
Right. And so a lot of people try to figure that out, right? Oh, he wasn't righteous to begin with. Or God doesn't exist because just these things happen. There's this debate. There's this debate. And the debate is, why is there evil if God is not evil? You know? So that's the debate that Habakkuk has. That's the debate that Job has. That's the debate that Jeremiah has. Okay? And that's the debate that humanity will always have.
Right.
Okay? And that's the reason why I say that we're not going to find a succinct answer to it in this class. We're not going to find it. But it is so real and so prevalent it still occurs today, okay? And we can find the best answer for it. And in my opinion, the Christian answer is the best answer, right? Okay, cool. Any questions?
No, but it reminded me of something.
Okay.
I think I told you this story already. I don't know. I was at Mardi Gras and we were talking to this guy, and then he had the same questions, like if God is real or if God loves
If God
us,
is, yeah.
yeah, why is he allowing all this stuff, all this evil stuff to happen? And then I was just like, I can't tell you, like I don't know, I really don't know. But we were still trying to like have him like come to Jesus. You know what I mean?
Right, no, good.
And it made me think about how like say if I I don't know, eat Burnette's food, whatever.
Yeah.
And then and like Burnette's super mad at me. You know, and she's just really mad at me. And but she knows that not her job, but you know what I mean, the Christian thing is to do is like forgive.
Yeah.
Like don't look at the sin that this person did, but turn around and forgive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It made me think of that, like, okay, all of this evil stuff is going around in the world, but here's the truth and the light about God. You know what I mean? So turn to that and trust. You know what I mean?
I think I do. I think I do. The whole idea is that through the church, God has provided a solution. Is that what you're saying to the evil dilemma? I think so. And I think it also goes beyond that. One of the things the way that C.S. Lewis addresses it, again, there is the Christian answer. There is the Christian answer. Is it still left with gaps? Yes. But it's the best answer that I think that any other worldview system could provide. Okay? So there is the Christian answer. However, it's still a mystery. That's what I'm trying to say. But one of the ways that it was addressed by C.S. Lewis is, so this person that you talk to at Mardi Gras is like, if there's so much evil in the world, and God is such a good and powerful God, why are these things happening? The amazing thing is that you have the ability to distinguish what's good and evil. Where did you get that? Where did you get that? And except for the fact that a moral giver gave it to you. You know? And so think about it that way. Think about it in that perspective. Why do you think this is evil? Because in any other worldview, especially an atheistic worldview, it's not evil. There's no such thing as evil in an atheistic worldview. It just happened. It just happened. So why do you deem it as such? Why does every human being deem it as such? You know? And so start from there. You know, and then progress. But, you know, this is an apologetics course, but this is something, though, that even these old guys back in the day in the Old Testament addressed. So it's not that, what I'm trying to say is there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun. And people have been dealing with this ever since time began. You know, if God is such a just God, why is there injustice? You know, so, okay, cool. Any other questions? All right, so that's Habakkuk. Let me do Zephaniah, and then on Friday, we'll just get into their text, okay? Zephaniah is fun because there's a theory of Zephaniah that I really dig. So let's do Zephaniah.
Did we already go through the book of Nahum? Or
Yeah.
did we just do the textbook?
No, we went through the book of Nahum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that was quick.
All right. So Zephaniah, Israel, a sacrifice. All right. So who was the prophet? One thing unique about Zephaniah is that he gives us a genealogy in chapter 1, verse 1. Okay? And it's a genealogy that goes back 2 generations. And the final person that he mentions is Hezekiah. Okay? Now that's interesting, okay? Because a lot of scholars are trying to figure out who this Hezekiah is. And majority of them say that it's reference to the Judean king who ruled from 715 to 687 BC. All right? So the very fact that he has some familial, when I mean familial, family connection to Hezekiah. He's either part of the Hezekiah family, either by blood or was adopted in. Okay? So, one more time. Zephaniah is unique in this way. No other prophet that I know of provides a genealogy. So Zephaniah brings up a genealogy, and he only does it for 2 generations. He only does it for 2 generations, and it ends in Hezekiah. All right? So what does that suggest? What does that suggest? It could suggest that he is either of blood or he was adopted into the Hezekiah family. All right? But majority believe that this Hezekiah is actually the king Hezekiah. All right? All right, so he's related to in some way to Hezekiah. That's what I'm trying to say. He's related in some way to Hezekiah. Now, in the generational discussion, the first part is that he is known as son of Cushi. He is known as the son of Cushi. Now, this is interesting because a lot of people would assume that this is the name of his father, that Cushi was the name of his father. However, the commentary that I'm using suggests something entirely different, which I find is fascinating. It perhaps is not his name of the father, but his ethnicity. His ethnicity, okay? And so, well, what is his ethnicity then? Cushi is the Hebrew word for African. For African. Okay? So apparently, according to this scholar that I'm using, this person is of African descent who is part of the Hezekiah household. All right? And I mean, we can't take it as gospel truth. This is all speculation. But for me, I like it. I find it fascinating, especially because what you have is you kind of have he's Israelite, don't get me wrong, but he has another perspective because of the fact of his African descent. So he's in a way also Gentile, okay? But he's looking upon this Israel society and he sees that there's something wrong with it, okay? So it's not just within Israel, but people who look upon Israel, outsiders who look upon Israel, there's something wrong with it, okay? So one more time, based on these two forms of data, he's part of the Hezekiah household. Whether adopted or by blood, we don't know. He has some kind of relationship with the Hezekiah household. Okay. The second thing is he might be of African descent. Yes.
I just wanted to maybe add a little bit of insight. Like, I don't think it's too far-fetched that he might be African because if you think about it, like Moses had Cushite wife.
Very good. Very good. Solomon had experience with the Cushite people. Right. Sheba. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And there's still Hamitic Jews in Israel today, you know, so I agree with you. I think that it's not far-fetched, and I don't think it's far-fetched, but you know, we can't just say it's gospel truth either. But I like that idea because one more time, I feel that this is an outsider's view of Jerusalem and that he's accustomed to Yahweh tradition. And so this is a person saying, hey, I'm not really one of you guys, but I know that there's something wrong, you know, so. Sure.
I saw this on I forgot where I saw this exactly. It was on TV. It was really interesting. There's like this African tribe in Africa that they say like they're Israelites.
Oh, really?
Jewish. Yeah,
wow.
They practice the Torah.
Really?
All the customs.
Great. That's cool. So I think and I mean, who knows? And I don't know if anyone ever ventured into it, the African-Israel relationship, but I'm not surprised by it because, like you said, there's biblical evidence And then there's apparently external evidence of it as well. Okay? And then finally, based on internal textual evidence, what is being said in the book itself, Zephaniah had connections to the temple as well as the royal court. Okay? So apparently he knew what was going on with the temple system, and he also knew what was going on with the royal court. And everyone understands when I say royal court, right?
No.
What that means. He dealt with royalty. He dealt with the kings and so forth. So he was in the midst with government people.
Professor Simon?
Yes.
You don't have these notes anywhere?
On my computer.
Only on your...
Well, I'm going to post the recording, and they show up with the recording.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know that.
Okay? May I continue on? Yes, no, maybe so?
Yeah, yes.
All right. Let's talk about the historical setting of Zephaniah. It was during the time when Assyria was losing power.
Assyria was losing power?
Yeah, and when Assyria was losing power. And there was because of that, there was rising hegemony of smaller nations, meaning this, that the smaller nations that were subservient to Assyria, they had more freedom. They had more freedom to do what they wanted, including Israel. Okay?
What is waning?
Waning. It's waning. It's losing it. Decreasing. The picture of waning is when a candle is melting. That's the picture of waning. Okay? He was a prophet during the reign of King Josiah. Does anyone know who Josiah is? And what makes him significant?
He's the king that was during the one of those wars, and then he died.
Yes, he died in the Battle of Carchemish, right? But Josiah, what makes Josiah famous in the Bible is because he led the greatest revival/reform for the people of Israel. He refurnished the temple. He destroyed all the idolatry. He destroyed the Asherah poles. He gained the northern country. He gained northern territory. So basically, he looked like David. All right. And Josiah did all this by first establishing this reform by finding the book of the law in the temple.
Oh yeah, he was the one that we thought.
Right. And so, right, exactly. And he's the one that brought the Deuteronomic reform, or that is when the book of Deuteronomy comes in. Exactly. Okay. So it is during the reign of this king, okay, and he's preaching, Zephaniah is preaching prior to the Deuteronomic reforms. So the whole idea here is basically, think of Zephaniah as Josiah's poster child. You know, and that whatever Josiah wanted to do, Zephaniah preached about it.
Whatever, you said that again?
Zephaniah was like Josiah's poster child. Josiah's poster child. Whatever Josiah wanted to do in regards to any religious form or political form, Zephaniah preached about it. How many of you guys have a Social Security card? Okay. Do you know why we have a Social Security card?
So that homeboy can find us.
Well, that's now what it is, I guess, but that's not the real reason why we have Social Security. Does anyone know why we have Social Security? How many of you guys work? How many of you guys have a W-4 or W-2? In that W-4 or W-2, do you ever notice Social Security?
Yeah.
And they take money out for some reason?
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why we have Social Security is because during the time of the Depression, when people lost money, they had no idea how to take care of old people because there was no money. You know, it's just like, so when everyone was out of job, How could you take care of those who can't work? How could you take care of those who are sick and so forth, who couldn't work? And so Franklin Delano Roosevelt developed the Social Security system, where if you have a job, you take a certain amount out of it for Social Security so that when you stop working or if you are injured or in some form of way, if you can't work, Social Security was there for you. Okay? That was the whole idea of Social Security. Conservatives hated it. Conservatives hated it. Why? Because the whole idea is you're taking my hard-working cash so that I can share it with everyone else. Are you kidding me? Kind of sounds like Obamacare, right? So that's the whole idea. And so, but it was established. It was established and it was set through. Why? Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the G. He was a Mac, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, that was the whole purpose. But do you know what he did to help convince that Social Security was a good idea for the nation? He sent out letters to pastors. He sent out letters to pastors letting them know that this is a good idea, here's why it's a good idea, and that you should convince your congregation that Social Security is a good idea. Okay? He sent thousands upon thousands of letters to pastors. Okay? Similar idea with Zephaniah, where the whole idea is that Josiah wanted this religious political reform to happen. Zephaniah was one of those guys to try to convince the Israel nation that this should happen. Okay? Questions about that? Exactly. Why? Because religion is powerful. It's not bad like some people would say. It's not bad. It's simply powerful. It's simply powerful. It can be used for great good because of its power, or it could be used for great evil because of its power. Okay, and so whenever a person says, "Oh, religion is one of the worst evils, one of the worst evils in the world, and we should totally eliminate it," I would say I totally agree with you. That's why we should also eliminate sex. And people just start snickering at me because it's like, no, for reals. We should eliminate sex then. Why? Have you heard of rape? Have you heard of people molesting children? We should totally eliminate something that does that to people. And then the room does become silent, right? But it's not because of the thing that's good or bad. It's how you use it. It's the power of the thing. Religion, sex is very powerful. Religion's very powerful. It's how we use it. That it depends if it's good or bad. All right? So, okay. Are we good? All right. One last slide, and then I'll let you guys leave, okay? Literary concerns about the book. The book is about a collection of the prophet's oracles divided into three sections. First, judgment against Judah and Jerusalem. Am I? Thank you so much. Judgment against Judah and Jerusalem. That's the first section. Then we have judgment against the nations, a very common theme, very common prophetic tradition among the writers. And then finally, the last section is a divine promise to the nations, Judah and Jerusalem. Okay? Remember the time that Zephaniah is speaking. There's this bubbling new idea called Deuteronomy and the Deuteronomic reform. Okay? And so there's presuppositions to Zephaniah. One big one, based on the Deuteronomic reform, is that punishment presupposes covenantal obligations. Okay? So meaning this, what was Deuteronomy all about? Look, we have a covenant relationship with God. Point one. Two, there's consequences to that covenantal relationship. If we obey God, cha-ching, we get blessings. If we disobey God, then something bad is really going to happen to us. Okay? So that's point number 2. Point 3, where are we now? Right? One more time. Deuteronomy is this. Point 1, we have a covenant relationship with God. Point Point 2 is if we obey God, it's going to be a blessing to us. If we disobey God, it'll be a curse to us. Okay? And then finally, point 3, where are we now? Are we obeying God or are we disobeying God? If we're disobeying God, because most likely we're disobeying God, then bad things are going to happen. Yes, Evan?
What did you say those 3 things were?
Point 1 is we have a covenant relationship with God.
No. I got all the points, but what are they? You know?
The Deuteronomic covenant.
Okay.
So if we are screwing up, if we are disobedient to God, then Yahweh's day comes. And what is Yahweh's day? Yahweh's day is God's wrath upon Judah and Jerusalem. And then finally, one of the very unique things about Zephaniah is he has a lot to talk about in regards to the temple. So the temple is a central motif, which makes a whole lot of sense. Why? If this is all about the Deuteronomic covenant, one of the things that you need to ask forgiveness from God is the temple system. You need to make sacrifices. Okay? So this makes a lot of sense based on the background of Zephaniah.
Why do they always say Judah and Jerusalem as if they're not in the same place?
That's a good question. They do. It's referring to the same place, but Judah is the region.
Mm-hmm.
Jerusalem is the capital city. So it's like we really don't. Alameda County, but what's the center of Alameda? Alameda, but that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
It's like Bay Area and San Francisco.
Right. But we don't say Bay Area and San Francisco, unless we do judgment writing upon. Anyways, I don't know. I think Judah represents the political aspect of it, and Jerusalem represents the religious aspect of it. So, all right, cool. All right, so like I said, on Friday we'll go over Habakkuk and we'll go over Zephaniah, and then I might talk about the Persians next because the last 3 prophets are post-exilic prophets.
Really?
Yeah, and all they talk about is what's wrong with you guys. The temple is great.
So they wrote in the same time as Ezra and Nehemiah?
After, much after.